Good day, everyone. I'm your host, James Hicks from HicksNewMedia, and welcome to Perspectives in Focus, where we highlight the people, industries, ideas, and the technology that are making positive strides within society today. Today, my guest is Mr. Shirish Nadkarni. He is a serial entrepreneur with proven success in creating multiple consumer businesses that have scaled to tens of millions of users worldwide. Shirish was the co-founder of LiveMocha. LiveMocha was the world's largest language learning site with 15 plus million registered members from over 200 countries. That company was acquired by Rosetta Stone. Prior to LiveMocha, she was the founder of Team On Systems, which was a mobile wireless email pioneer that was since acquired by BlackBerry. I'm still waiting to find when the BlackBerry movie starts streaming. Maybe I can ask him about that. He also, listen, he started his career at Microsoft, where he had an integral part in engineering the acquisition of Hotmail and launching MSN.com. So I say all of that backstory. The man knows what he's talking about. He's been around the block a handful of times. And this forthcoming book of his called Winner Takes All: How Online Marketplaces Are Creating Modern Monopolies. We're going to get into that conversation and see where we go. Y'all stick with us. Sir, yeah, to say you've been around the block a handful of times is probably the biggest understatement that I've that I've said in a long time. Mr. Nadkarni, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Listen, I'm hyped about this conversation because just again, like I said before we went online, selfishly, with your background and where you've been, what you've done, your perspective on the why of this is kind of interesting to me. So I would love to hear about that. I know I was at the 35,000 foot level when I did the monologue, but if there was something, sir, that I missed that you would like to tell the community in terms of who it is you are and what it is that you're doing, besides just writing books and making fantastic companies and divisions, I'd love for you to share that if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would say that I was fortunate to have been born in the 60s because by the time I graduated from college, the PC revolution was well under its way. And, I got to spend time at Microsoft, which was a leader in PC operating systems and applications. And then the internet happened. I got to go out on my own and build a company around the internet. And then later on, mobile email software. So I've been very fortunate to have seen various different technology transformations, starting with the PC, then the internet, then mobile, and then social networking, and now AI, right?
Hmm.
So I just been very fortunate to have been at the right time, right place, taking advantage of these opportunities to create new companies and new ideas.
Awesome. Love that. Yeah, listen, background on me, I gave 20 years of my life to HP. I gave 10 years to Mr. Jobs and Apple, and had one of those infamous one-on-ones with him. So I will cherish that for forever. Let me ask you this: with all of the success, with all the things that you have done, right, from a technology perspective, leadership perspective, just being in the industry, what was it that made you write this book? What was it that made you say this is a conversation that folks need to start having as we start seeing again the Amazons, as we start seeing the Google, as we start seeing these companies grow at an exponential scale? Why did you feel that it was your charter to talk about that?
Well, in general, I feel it's the responsibility of folks like us who have had the experience building companies, building products, to share that with new entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
When I first started, Team On Systems, which was my first company, there was really no resource available either in the book form or on the internet on how to start a company, how to vet your idea, how to fundraise, all of that. And I had to learn on my own. And even today, I meet lots of individuals, lots of entrepreneurs, and I get the same kinds of questions time and time again. And so that's really what prompted me to start writing books and sharing my experience. I did that first with my first book,
Mm-hmm.
uh, From Startup to Exit, which is for aspiring entrepreneurs. And then I've had a fascination with marketplaces, starting with eBay and then Amazon and now Airbnb and DoorDash and so forth. What's fascinating about marketplaces is that it's very hard to get off the ground. There's a chicken or egg problem
Mm-hmm.
because the consumers will not come if there are not enough suppliers. Suppliers will not come if there are not enough consumers. But once you get to critical mass, then the network effects kick in, and it becomes a virtual flywheel that just
Mm.
keeps on propagating itself, and eventually it's a winner take all market.
So that's not a good thing. How, how do we get here? So I see with me, I have my I have my notes that I was going to talk about, but this conversation right here is so engaging. I'm just going to skip some of that right now. Uh,
Mm.
how did we get to this point? Like, how do we get to this point where again these large organizations, the Airbnbs, the Googles, the Amazons, and such like that, are they too big to fail? Right. I guess that is also a question that I have asked, because we've heard that talked about within society as well. How do we get to this point where certain such companies that we rely on are maybe too big to fail?
Right. I think the main reason we've gotten to this point is that one is that the internet initially, and then followed by mobile, the total population of users on mobile and on the internet has exploded. It's not just in the US, but in countries like India and China, where there are 800 million people using mobile internet. Um, and if one or two companies can really execute really effectively, then the brand becomes very powerful, and that's where. And then, as I mentioned, network effects kick in and so forth, and they become unstoppable.
So the aspect of the monopoly is, I guess, and without assuming, in your eyes, in your perspective, you think, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I'm coming from it from it. It's probably should be looked at and should be maybe regulated, maybe should have some sort of oversight. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm wondering if we can have that dialogue. What are your thoughts again when you have these large monopolies out here?
Yeah, I would say that overall, I mean, there are many good things
Mm,
about companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft dominating in their space. They're generally led by people who are, ethically, very strong and have good business practices. But eventually, the temptation, especially within a large organization, is to take advantage of your monopoly
mm,
to the
okay.
detriment of other players. I mean, I write in my book, Winner Takes All, examples of how Amazon and Apple and Google have abused their monopoly to the detriment of some of the participants in their marketplace.
Well, I almost think I liken that. I made the small joke in the monologue about the BlackBerry movie, right? And you were integral piece of that. I'm waiting for it to start streaming so I can watch this thing and see all of some of the backstory of that. But again, that's one company that a lot of us did not think was going away. Was just
Yeah.
continuing on a high trajectory. But then next thing you know, they're negligent, right? Or they're nothing compared to what's out there in the marketplace right now. Let me ask this. I mentioned about regulation. I mentioned about slight oversight. Your thoughts on that perspective, right? Again, should there be some Congress intervention? Should there be some federal legislation, some mandates and things like that to protect not just the companies, so not just the Amazons and the Googles, but the consumers like you and me ourselves from companies that get too big?
Yeah, I believe that there should be some regulation,
Mm,
in light regulation. We should be very careful about what regulation we impose on these companies, because these companies are competing in a global economy. And China, for example, has become very, very strong economically. They have some great companies, and they are starting to compete on the world stage. And so we don't want to hamstring our own
mm,
companies
good
to the
point.
detriment of the global competition. But there is room for some regulation. For example, with Amazon, they will self-preference their own products,
True. Yeah, I've seen that.
and to the detriment of others who are competing in that market. And so, that playing field should be leveled. Another example is, Apple. They have become a monopoly of sorts, and they restrict how apps in their app store can monetize, right?
Yeah.
So there are regulations that are coming internationally that are now hopefully will also take place in the US, to constrain some of these players and their dominance.
Got you, got you. That's true. When you get locked into the Apple ecosystem, man, it's tough to get every individual component, every watch, every phone, every tablet, whatever. Right? It's tough to break free from that, even if you may want to. So I hear you, and I'm glad that that conversation is happening. That you're part of that. Has in the initial conversations that you've been having, I guess, with leaders at those organizations and maybe with lobbyists and things of that nature, have you seen or heard any resistance to kind of the mentalities and the best practices and the thoughts that you're suggesting for these organizations and for these industries?
Yeah, not surprising, there has been resistance,
Mm,
though some of them have called for regulation.
mm-hmm,
Company like Facebook, for example, which
mm,
has gone into a lot of trouble, um, you know, uh, to their credit, has called for regulation more to protect themselves legally. So
mm-hmm.
they can point to, we are following the regulation, and bad things still happen, but it's not our fault.
Right.
Um, but yeah, there is some resistance to it, not surprisingly, but some of the industry leaders also calling for regulation.
Okay. And where I guess top three, top two, however many, best practice do you think again from, and I'm gonna say from both sides, both from the consumer perspective and from the business perspective. What do you think should be kind of the next steps to bring about awareness to either being I don't know, bringing awareness to being aware about monopolies and how the consumer can protect themselves. That's where I wanted to go, where the consumer can protect themselves, and then where organizations who, rightfully so, listen, it's capitalism, where
Yeah.
organizations want to sell their wares and sell their goods. Amazon comes here every single day. Listen, I'm a part of the cycle. So,
Yeah.
uh, from that perspective, right? What are some best practices, best thoughts for the consumer and for businesses as we continue to move forward?
Yeah, and unfortunately, consumers, even though the Congress and and some of the industry leaders are calling for regulation, etc. Honestly, consumers don't really care about their
Mm,
data privacy. They don't really understand, that they're being hurt by unfair, competition, and they're paying, higher prices, etc. It's very hard to educate consumers. So, really, the only step that can be taken is to put pressure on your local congressperson and have them, have groups, nonprofits who track these issues, really pressure Congress to enact some of these regulation to protect consumers, because consumers are not going to act on their own.
So you talk, and I'm looking at my notes. So you talk in the book about creating critical mass of supply and demand necessary for a marketplace to thrive.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that, and kind of break that down into layman's terms, so folks can kind of understand where you're coming from when you say creating a critical mass of supply and demand.
Right. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a chicken or egg
Hmm.
problem to get a marketplace off the ground, because consumers will not come if there's not enough supply. Suppliers will not come in if there are not enough consumers.
Mm.
But you can break the logjam. I'll give you an example of DoorDash. When they started their marketplace, and it's really a marketplace because they are uh, helping you carry out the transaction between the consumer and the restaurant, right?
Right.
And so initially, to create supply, they basically took PDFs of the menus from a variety of the different restaurants and put that on their website and said you can order from these restaurants, and they would get the order, and literally they would turn around and call the restaurant and place the order.
Wow.
It was
I did not
as
realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
right? It was as simple as that, and then they would go pick it up and deliver the order, right? It was not until later that they started calling on restaurants. They hired salespeople to call these restaurants and say, "Hey, would you like to get onto our platform? And by the way, we've already been taking orders, so many orders per
Mm.
month from your restaurant. So it's to your benefit to join our platform." And that's how they got, started. Was to build that supply and to be really scrappy in doing so. And eventually they created the supply side, which then drove the consumers to come to their site.
Okay, I got you. That makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. Um, that's very interesting. I'm just sitting here now thinking about that from the early stages, right? They're taking photos and pictures and PDFs of the menus. That's crazy how it started there. Um, Winner take all. Let's talk about the book. And the book's not out yet, right? It's actually coming out officially next month, or have you
Yes, it's coming out on June 6th.
June
Yeah,
6th?
you
Okay,
can,
and
you can pre-order. You can pre-order the book. Yes,
all right, and pre-order it on like Amazon or
on
directly off of your
Amazon. Yes.
website. Okay,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I will make sure that we have links to that, to your website and to the book on Amazon, and to actually these other books as well. Uh,
Mhm.
are any of your books on audiobook?
The first book, Start to Exit, is available as an audiobook.
Man, then I'm downloading it tonight. I live for audiobooks, so I am downloading that. Maybe as
Okay.
soon as we hang up, right? I'm gonna get that. So yeah, I'm already buying that. That's good stuff. Uh, what are you looking to? What are you looking to tap in? What's the message? The overarching message. I understand the concept, right? What's the overarching message you want when folks actually pick up Winner Takes All to get next month when they get your book?
The overarching message is that some of the biggest companies in the world are marketplaces. They can be giant opportunities, but they tend to be a winner take all kind of situation, and it ends up being a situation where the company becomes a monopoly and becomes too powerful.
Mm.
And so it's important for us to understand that, understand how these monopolies have abused their power, and then for our government, Congress, to take action to stop these monopolies from taking advantage of suppliers and consumers and so forth.
I love it. Yeah. I'm I I'm gonna put like a reminder on Amazon, so when it comes out, I make sure I get a copy of it. Um, what else? Right? I mean, this is and ask when I say what else. You're tackling a huge conversation here with this, right? And I expect there to be engaged dialogue when someone in executive leadership picks up the book and starts reading and start talking to their peers about, oh, Shirish is talking about us, right? How we're managing our business and how we're possibly affecting consumers and society and industry and things of that nature. What would be the next tactical move for you, right? When that happens, is it again maybe going out and doing workshops, webinars, coaching sessions, things like that with the organizations when they get this, and hopefully put some of the practices into practice. So, or some of the methodologies into practice. What are you looking to accomplish from that perspective? Right, different than what you expect folks to get when they get the book. But what do you expect for you to be doing after folks actually get your book?
Yeah. The other aspect of the book is is how to start from zero, right?
Mm,
Um, and scale up a marketplace, which is
okay.
not non-trivial. And so I'd love to give talks. I would, if if any corporation is thinking of launching or a startup think of launching a marketplace, I would love to talk to them, give them my guidance, my advice. So I'm here to share my experience and help startup founders, help companies establish sound marketplaces, and then avoid as the Google saying used to go, be don't be evil, um, which they haven't necessarily followed all the time,
I was going to say that one has been swept under the rug, unfortunately.
yeah, unfortunately, yes. Um, so yeah, what are some of the practices once you become winner take all? How do you make sure that you are true to your your word, and you are taking care of suppliers and consumers that have made you successful?
Man, that's it right there. That's the admirable piece right there. So I definitely wish you some success on that, and wish you a lot of success on that. Where can folks find you? I've shown one link in one location right here, but if folks want to continue a dialogue, continue having a discussion, talk about your previous book, talk about this forthcoming book, and maybe get in contact with you, right, in terms of some of those conversations, what's the best means of reaching out to you, sir?
So I have a website which is shirishnadkarni.com, which is showing up on the screen as we speak. SHIRISHNADKARNI.com, and that has all my talks, my blog posts, my writings, and then it has links for LinkedIn and Twitter, which I use quite often to communicate my messages. And I welcome, I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, for free. There's no cost to it. It's my way of giving back to the community. So welcome smart entrepreneurs to reach out to me, and if they want to have a discussion around what they're building, what they hope to accomplish, then I'm happy to help them.
I'm gonna push this newsletter too.
Yes.
I know it's the old book, but I'm sure you're going to answer questions regardless. So I'm gonna push this newsletter as well, and again, make sure that that link is in the description for folks to be able to find as well. This is good
Thank you.
stuff. Yes, sir. You're doing the good work. How about that? I really think that this is it's an awkward conversation that has to happen, right? It's one of those sensitive conversations that has to happen, right? You're telling a company you're doing good, but be cognizant and be aware of your impact on society and how we can maintain clarity, transparency, all the adjectives out there. And not everyone, from my humble opinion, not everyone can do that. Only someone who has, again, been through the hoops, been through the hurdles, done what you've done, been up, down, knocked down, gotten back up, and that kind of thing. And you've got that history in terms of that experience to be able to have those concrete conversations. So for that, I wanted to give you some flowers and say congratulations and good luck with all of those conversations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sir, be well, take care, and like I say, I'm gonna go download that audiobook, before I go to the gym tonight, and I will speak to you soon, sir, after the book launches, and I hope everything goes well for you.
Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the book.
Thank you, sir. Be well.